But if a threat like this exists and all of a sudden gets turned in the wrong way, I'm gonna exploit every weakness possible. And I think just from a simple standpoint of technology, like how fickle is technology? I mean, sometimes we can't even get our phone to work or our computer to work or software to function properly. And that's really what we need to be thinking about is like, yes, things are becoming more technologically advanced, but I'd look to exploit whatever weaknesses that I possibly could in the changing tactics, in the changing software that would be used on the good guys.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. Our informational content cannot address all dangerous situations and cannot guarantee your survival or prevent injuries when the unexpected happens. The decision to carry a firearm, either for recreation or for personal defense, carries the risk and potential for injury and or death. Therefore, it is advised that you seek out and acquire proper training before using a firearm or any firearm-related product.
What are some self-defense techniques?
What would happen if there was a global internet outage?
What should I do if I hear shots ringing out?
Or what I should do if there's a major terrorist attack?
What should I have? What's the best?
What should I do?
What does that look like?
What would you recommend? Is there anything I could do?
All right, guys, welcome back to Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. One thing I wanted to bring up with you guys in this episode was something that came up with a buddy of mine, and we were talking about dealing with these scenarios, all of these things that are being submitted, these questions that you guys have, but this key principle of visualization. And that's my challenge to you before we even start today's episode. And in the following weeks, I'm gonna ask you guys again and again is that when you come up with one of these scenarios, even in your own life, and you think about it, I'm at home, I'm at a gas station, wherever the scenario might unfold, or where you think there might be a threat, are you visualizing yourself walking through that? And I'm talking about just thinking about it, even just getting the rep of thinking through, close your eyes for a second and say, hey, if I'm at this specific scenario, at this gas station, I get out of this door, I stand on the pump on this side, I'm putting the code in or my card in, and I'm looking at this view. You can literally visualize a lot of what you can go through and mitigate it just by the power of visualization. So I want that to be a challenge to you guys. Implement it in your life. Implement it as you're thinking about how these scenarios that you're getting ready to break down and that you're getting ready to listen to apply to your life. As always, guys, thanks for being with us today, and let's get into the first question. So the first question's a text. It's, can you break down the key principles of clearing a room and what are some common mistakes people make? Okay, so clearing rooms, direct action missions, hostage rescue, combat action, however you want to break these down, even home defense scenarios. It's one of my favorite topics. And honestly, I think the pinnacle, go off on a little bit of a tangent here, the pinnacle of a warrior is really being able to put the mental and spiritual intelligence that you need and the physical capabilities all together. I really feel like those need to be at the apex of who you are to be able to do clearing really, really well. But what does that mean for the average person? If there's common principles that apply to everybody, what are they? And I would say the primary thing to think about when you are thinking about clearing your home, defending your home, being out at a school, if you're a teacher, it's context. Context is the primary thing we need to think about how we are going to respond. If I put you in a scenario where somebody that you love is in danger and they're at risk of being killed right here and now, it's this instant, boom, and it goes off. That's going to be much different than there's 20 guys in the next room armed to the teeth. I'm unarmed because I just had to go through security. They're bad, and I've got 10 kids that are of 10 to 15 years of age in school, and I have to protect them. Everything just changed in that dynamic. One is, okay, I have my 2-year-old son on the other side of a bad guy, and I'm armed. This one is, there's 20 bad guys armed, and I have to break contact with these children and get them to safety. I still have to clear rooms in both scenarios, but they are going to be handled much, much differently. So the takeaway from this, without going too far into detail with clearing, because I'm telling you, you want to talk about a rabbit hole, that's one of the primary things that we focus on in the military, in the teams, is room clearance. And context is going to be your biggest driver. So I started with a visualization. Visualize yourself of what scenarios are coming up in your life that you're worried about. Then we can break down the context. So whoever sent in this question, thank you, it's a good one. Maybe send a follow-up one with a little bit more detail about what you're looking to take care of, because I really could spend a lot of time on this topic. And I guess the last thing I'll end with is a contrast. If my child is in danger of being hurt or killed and he's in the other room, I'm gonna explode through that door and put my life at risk above his to make sure that I can put him in the best scenario possible. All of that is learning. The second I crack that door open, I'm gonna be thinking about where's the best position for me to protect him. That could be pulling the trigger right away. It could be getting in front of him. There's a lot of different things there, but I can tell you that every fiber of my soul and being is going to be in there and dedicated to helping him. Now, on the contrast where my 2-year-old boy is with me, he's safe, I hear shooting in the other room, and there's something going on, but I want to get him to safety, but there's not an imminent threat in front of me, then I'm going to clear the next room a little bit more cautiously. I'm not going to go in there so explosively because I know that he's not directly in the line of danger. Hopefully that contrast makes sense, and I'm telling you, there's way more variables in between. There's a spectrum all the way from here to here that have to be broken down and understood. But if you guys ask a question about clearing or home defense, please try to add some context for me. That way I can help you create a little bit more clarity around what you're asking. But great question, and again, I love clearing. It's one of my favorite things to do. Next question is a video submission. Let's roll it.
Hey Dom, thanks for having me. Coming to you with a question. I am a traveler in the transportation industry, and something I think about a lot is how can I best use my surroundings to my advantage and prevent them from becoming a disadvantage to me. I'm sure you've been in many urban environments where you needed to mitigate the circumstances of your surroundings or use them to your advantage. Curious what your thoughts are around that. Thanks for your time.
All right, thanks. Great video. And the principle that I'm thinking of, and if anybody knows me and that's trained with me, you should already know what principle I'm going to bring up. Environmental manipulation. And really that's what he's asking. He's in the transportation industry. So I start painting a picture. Okay, you're out, you're on a highway, you're stopping at random places, at night, random times. So how do you best use your environment? And really the negative there was that he was like, I don't want to allow this to be a disadvantage. If we think of environmental manipulation, using it as a weapon, you have to start thinking of these obstacles, because I could create any context in any scenario for you. Say a guy pulls out a blade, pulls out a gun, or there's another vehicle, or there's another situation unfolding. I think the best thing that you guys could utilize is this idea of dead space or cover or concealment. That's kind of the big rock. That's the big glaring principle that's right there in front of you that you need to understand as you're walking through. Just like I got this wall in front of me, this is a big, giant wall of concealment. Whoever's on the other side of it can't see where I'm at right now. If I look at my truck, the engine block or the wheel or whatever it may be, provides a minimal amount of cover. If these scenarios unfold, how am I using these as an asset? How am I saying, okay, I'm not part of this scenario yet, nobody saw me, how do I conceal myself to set myself up for success? Maybe I'm gonna flank, maybe I'm gonna get in my vehicle and just drive away, or maybe I'm going to put myself in a position where I can help mitigate whatever the threat is. But think about it that way, as obstacles, as cover, as concealment, because all of this stuff in your environment can really slow people down or set you up for success. So if you do anything in the transportation industry, or you guys are traveling out there on the highway, going to see family, holidays, whatever it may be, think about how every place you go, there's something there that you can use to your advantage. Remember, I always say, what I want you guys to think about is that this environment is all yours. Everything belongs to you, because in the event that a life-threatening scenario breaks out, trust me, it belongs to nobody until the fight's over. So act like everything is yours. This is your building, this is your car, this is your obstacle. Whatever is there belongs to you, and you need to use it to the best of your ability. Great question, but apply that in a way that creates these things as assets in your environment and manipulate it at all costs. Whatever the context is, use that to your advantage. All right, next question. All right, next question is a text question. Do you have any stories of being in urban combat scenarios where you had to navigate tight streets and alleyways? How do you avoid getting trapped? Okay, so the main thing here is asking the question of how do I avoid being trapped in an urban environment? First and foremost, if you know where you're going, if you're going to be somewhere for an extended period of time, let's be honest. Google is at our fingertips. We didn't have the satellite imagery to even go on a target 20 years ago that you have today in the palm of your hands. So it's kind of, it's sad really to think that you're going to be somewhere for an extended period of time, say even your hotel room or a place that you know might be a threat, or you're going out for the night, to even take a moment to say, okay, what is going on around this area? Okay, I see a beach here, there's an exit in the back. I know that I'm being seated right here, but beyond this fence, on the other side of this fence, there's an alleyway, there's an out, right? Where in a scenario, a shooting might start right here, and I might ask myself, well, where do I go? If I visualize that, there's that word again. If you visualized your scenario, you can just hop the fence and you're free. You're safe, and you're moving to the next thing to break contact. Study your environment, study the map, study your surroundings to the best of your ability. That's what saved us. Yeah, I can't tell you, there's countless of urban combat scenarios that we were in, and especially being on point and being part of a recce team and being a sniper, that's all that I did was study the maps and study my route and study what was going on around me. The other element to this is that wherever I go in, I want to make sure that I have an alternate out. And wherever my out is, I want to make sure I have an alternate in. So wherever I'm moving to, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about, okay, I could move there, I could move here. If a contact broke out right here, how am I going to move my family to safety? And honestly, it's a fun way to think once you start going through that process. Just have fun with it. You can even tell your kids, hey, if something happened right now, what would you do? Well, I'd grab my sister, I'd move her over here, I'd pin her up against the car to make sure she was safe. I'd grab Joseph and put him in my arms and put my back against the wall. These are all things that you could work out and simply visualize to set yourself up for success. So to avoid getting trapped, know your area, study the maps. If you're going to be somewhere for an extended period of time, guys, there's no reason not to study where you are to set yourself up for success. And beyond that, if you don't have the opportunity to do it and you get ambushed in an area where you didn't expect to be, the bottom line is that you need to be predicting. You need to think, okay, if I go down an alleyway, well, there's a good chance that there's nothing at the end of it, so don't get stuck that way. You may have to take a little bit more risk or fight through. Again, you remember me talking about the station fire, is that here's this big glaring fire on the stage, and everybody ran away from it when if I just got burned a little bit, I would have been out in the back alleyway in 10 seconds and been fine. It's the same type of idea when you think about an urban combat scenario or something that could happen, even in a mob setting or a street environment where there's a lot of cars, there's a lot of people. Look for the avenues that not everybody's looking for. That's where you can go and punch through, and with a little bit of effort, you're on the side of freedom with not getting trapped or in a bad scenario. We've seen it happen time and time again. You can spend tons of time on YouTube seeing these bad scenarios play out. Think through it and be predictive. Great question. Let's get to the next one. Getting into the cyber aspect of this, as drone warfare becomes more common, and it is, we're all seeing it out there, would there be a way to protect yourself if they're being utilized? Now, we're looking at a combat scenario here, and drones are becoming a thing. It's becoming a concern for some people, and at the foundation of everybody watching this, on the moral level, it's like, are we doing anything that we should be concerned about? Drones coming in and popping in our living room and taking us out. From a moral perspective, hopefully we're all living in a way that we're not looking over our shoulder for a drone to come smack us in the head. But it is this concern out there, there is this concern out there where are they going to be used unjustly? And I think that's the scenario that I find myself in, is like, just like anything else in the world, any corporation, any country, there's people that are crooked, there's people that are broken, there's people that are out there maybe they even have their best intentions, but are being utilized in the wrong way. And in that scenario, where all these things are out there and this concern, this glaring topic of like, is this going to ever get used against me? I think that's where we need to just keep up with technology and thinking about the tactics. Anything that we've seen in the past from a technology standpoint that could have been used against us, for me, it's about finding the weakness in all of it. And there's a fine line between this being used on really bad dudes for the right reasons and this capability being used on good people for the wrong reasons, and everything else in between. But if a threat like this exists and all of a sudden gets turned in the wrong way, I'm going to exploit every weakness possible. And I think just from a simple standpoint of technology, like how fickle is technology? I mean, sometimes we can't even get our phone to work or our computer to work or software to function properly. And that's really what we need to be thinking about is like, yes, things are becoming more technologically advanced, but I'd look to exploit whatever weaknesses that I possibly could in the changing tactics, in the changing software that would be used on the good guys, for instance. So just thinking about that contrast, because I know it's a concern, it's been brought up before and people have asked me. Just something to consider. This is good to see the angles of this. And of course I watch half these, I'm like, is this real? Is this not real? Did AI make this too? But it's not a surprise that stuff like this is being utilized. I mean, even for a long time, even drones and predators, that technology blew our minds. It was like, oh, we have this unmanned aircraft, being utilized, and it's used to precisely and surgically attack a target. And really, this is just a mini version of that capability used in a different and unconventional way. And again, we are going to continue to do things that win fights and do things that go after the bad guys. And so if they're being used for the right reasons, I think all the more, the better we can use that technology for the right reasons.
Hey guys, what's up? This segment of Dangerous Questions is brought to you by Snake Staff Systems. If you guys have heard me talk about them before, they make low-profile tourniquets, and I always say there's no excuse not to have a tourniquet on you, and these guys nailed it with being able to have something on you at all times. Go check them out at snakestaffsystems.com. No excuses.
All right, guys, my favorite part, the scenario breakdowns, and this one's brought to you by Snake Staff Systems. And as a sniper, watching these videos and breaking these down with you guys is fun from a perspective of tactics, but not only a sense of what we're going to all learn from them. So we're going to watch all three of these together, and we'll break them down at the end. Okay. So we're watching, I don't know, she's got flip-flops on, obviously you see a round hit the side of the wall, and there's a comedy about this, but yet she almost just lost her life. So we'll break this down at the end when I talk about what we could have done better. Of course, the blue bandana is not something I'd be wearing, in a combat environment, but hey, what do I know about camouflage? So you got this guy sitting in a ditch, drinking his coffee. Could totally relate to this. It just brings you right back. I feel like I'm in like one of the world wars here. Broken dirt all around him. So that scenario is pretty comical as well. But the idea that you're exposing yourself maybe more than you need to be in a position where you don't really have much mobility. All right, we got one more, right?
You got cover out there?
Hey, we got a sniper.
All right, so you see that round hit the top of his helmet. And these guys are all stacked up at the door here. Of course, they're looking at the damage. Now, I've seen guys get hit like that. And again, if we're thinking from a sniper perspective, I'm going to tell you right now that I even went through this as I was watching these videos. If you have a real sniper that knows what they're doing, I mean, there's really not anything like it where you're like, man, I'm pinned down, I can't move, and if I move the wrong way or go the wrong way, that's it. It's done. I'm over. And that's the fear that we're trying to instill in the enemy as well. I've been on the on the other side of that, where I'm actually the one shooting. And I think when I'm thinking about applying these tactics on the other end, it's the idea, the fact that once you have a stable shooting platform, like any sniper really would, you lose a lot of mobility. So this is something to keep in mind in the opposite end of the spectrum, is that if I'm on the receiving end, I know that. I know mobility is a factor for somebody else. So I want to be unpredictable in my movement. But let's just break these three things down. You know, obviously, this is like, it's sort of, they're laughing about it. She's got a blue bandana on, you know, and I don't know exactly what the scenario is here, but you're overexposing yourself in an environment where clearly that could have been it. I mean, one more foot over, a half a foot over, or 6 inches, that was the top of her head. So knowing that what we're doing in these scenarios is setting us up for success, I'm not gonna have a blue bandana on. I'm not gonna put my gun way up there and lodged on something. You know, you don't wanna be that close to the window in these scenarios, because clearly you're gonna be an easy target for somebody else. So not to go too far into detail, those are just some simple tips from a counter sniper perspective that I'm trying to apply. You know, again, just this lackadaisical attitude. I don't ever really remember being in a scenario like this where I was that close to the window and not really taking it seriously, you know, because it could be your life, especially when it's precision marksman against precision marksman. You know, there's a level of intensity there that should be respected for sure. All right, next video. You know, other than this guy really just popping his head out of the ground, there's really not much to talk about here. It's more comical just because this guy's propped up his iPhone, he's taking video of it, he's getting some shots in with his AK, and he's sipping on his coffee that's steaming there. So not exactly what the point of this was, of more just the scenario of him. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, that's the case with any one of these, is that, yes, overexposing yourself in a ditch like that is clearly not the best tactic. I mean, if you have ground tactics you're applying, there's different purposes for it to hold the line. But again, don't overexpose yourself. And this last one, the one thing about these guys at the end is they were all stacked up in this door here. So you got 1, 2, 3 guys here, and that bullet came ripping in, where it's like, all right, how are you better setting yourself up for success to not overexpose yourself? Obviously, that threat exists from a marksman standpoint, a long-range standpoint. The other thing, too, is like, they said at the end, the Kevlar saved his life, and really, it didn't do much at all, because it just ricocheted. It skimmed off the top of his helmet. If he didn't have his helmet on, it wouldn't even probably hit his skull. You gotta remember, these things are sitting at about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off your head. Yes, would it be better to have the helmet on? Of course. But at the end of the day, you know, you're dealing with a situation where a lot of these rounds will rip right through these Kevlar helmets. Don't overexpose yourself if there is the threat of a sniper. You don't wanna be standing out in the middle of a window with 3 dudes. You know, again, respect what could come in from the other side and set yourself up for success. I want to be unpredictable. I want to be moving. I want to be in a situation where I can kind of gain some intelligence about where that target is before I go standing my whole silhouette in the window and, you know, putting my life at risk like that unnecessarily. But from a tactical standpoint, you know, that's just something to break down. You know, counter sniper, you can put serious fear into people if those rounds are coming in, and it's happened time and time again. And when you're exposed like that, you want to be able to find cover. You want to be able to move. You want to be able to be unpredictable. If all of a sudden shots start ringing out and you feel like they're above you, or they're coming from a high angle or in the woods, you need to shift your position immediately if you haven't already been hit, and find cover. Then start dissecting, like, what is going on here? Am I still exposed? Can I move to another area? And then escalate your position to the best of your ability to break contact and figure out what's going on. This is Dangerous Questions, an IRONCLAD original. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And remember my challenge in the beginning. What are you using to visualize? What scenarios are you running through your head and seeing yourself walk through? Visualization is a powerful tool. I talk about it all the time. But the intensity you put into it matters. So apply that intensity in your visualization, in your scenario, to make yourself a little bit better. And I'll bring up a new challenge next week. See you guys in the next episode.